At 6 a.m., you wake up, apply for a job, and get rejected before your coffee's even ready. Not by a human, but by an algorithm that decided your future in seconds. You tweak your CV, rewrite your cover letter, hit send again, and again, and again. Hundreds of applications, hundreds of "we were impressed," followed by "unfortunately," and at first you blame yourself. Maybe you're not good enough. But what if the problem isn't you at all? What if the system is filtering you out before anyone ever sees your name? Because landing your first job isn't just hard, it is fundamentally broken. I'm Josh, and on today's episode of the Infographics Show, we're explaining how the entry-level job is dead. Millions of people are opening rejection after rejection and realizing the brutal truth. It's not about education, it's not about age or desired pay or location or culture. Instead, they've become victims of the experience paradox. Companies don't care about school, they want time, and they want 3 to 5 years of it. Therein lies the paradox. Entry-level, by definition, is not mid-level. It's a classic catch-22. They want someone experienced for an entry-level job, but they won't give you a chance to get that experience. So how are you supposed to get hired? This is becoming the norm in the Western world. The current data shows that in the US, around 60% of entry-level job offers in industries like IT, marketing, or finance all want years of experience, but they aren't willing to train anyone. As an unhappy job seeker wrote on Reddit, what happened to growing into your role? That's how economic mobility works. Without it, you'll get millions of young people stuck at the bottom of the corporate ladder with no way up. 20 years ago, economic mobility made sense. But 20 years is a long time, and a lot has changed. More than ever, hiring managers now think about risk when reading your applications, or more likely, when their AI systems read your applications. They're not thinking about training, they're predicting viability, how fast you can be doing something to enhance their bottom line. They're looking for a sweet spot. Too young, not enough experience means high risk. Too old, too much experience, and you're too expensive, too desperate, or too stubborn. As another person wrote on Reddit, you literally can't win. What companies are ideally looking for is young, experienced, but not too experienced, plug-and-play workers. As a recruitment specialist said in an interview, employees must now hit the ground running. In other words, the first rung of the employment ladder has been ripped away. It's currently smoldering on the bonfire of progress. And it's not just in the US. In the UK, StandoutCV.com looked at almost 49,000 advertisements comprising 43 popular entry-level jobs. 51.3% of those jobs wanted experience with an average of 2.7 years. How is that even possible when you're starting out? One of the only solutions is internships. These days, students sometimes find themselves interning for months at a time, even a year or more. They sometimes take on 2 or even 3 different positions. According to Forbes, when it comes to predicting how someone will perform in an entry-level job, education, references, and interviews were much less reliable than performance in an internship. The article said hiring managers are, quote, desperate to avoid lions on the CV and cats on the job. But who can actually afford to work for free? Not everyone is blessed with a safety net. Nonetheless, without an internship, you are stuck. Back in the 1980s, only 3% of Americans did internships. Today, it's closer to 50%. And if you do an internship, you're likely to get a job afterward, or at least that used to be the case. But what about the other 50%? Where do they fit in? That's why critics have been calling internships unethical and unfair. Privileged students with resources fare much better in the landscape of job hunting, and it's not always about intelligence, skills, or dedication. If you're enjoying this breakdown of why getting your first job is nearly impossible, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It won't fix the problem, but it helps the channel. So, with the bottom rung now taken away and internships now one of the only ways to jump up the ladder, some young people are being locked out of corporate careers. But the fact is, even with an internship, these days there's no hard guarantee that you'll land a job, because entry-level jobs are disappearing fast. For U.S. graduates aged 22 to 27, unemployment is now 5.7%, well above the overall 4.4% rate. And 40% of those graduates that are in work are doing jobs that don't even require a university degree. Right now, aspiring to a white-collar job is not a great idea. But it's going to get worse. The reality is, a lot of firms are currently in the process of removing most of their entry-level positions. Part of the problem is outsourcing. What's the point of hiring an entry-level American IT worker for between $36,000 and $66,000 a year when you could outsource the same work to someone in India or Vietnam, someone experienced who can hit the ground running? What would you do if you owned a business? In 2024, Forbes, writing about outsourcing in the US, said that 37% of small businesses outsource at least one IT process. It isn't going away. By 2029, global IT outsourcing is expected to grow by $812.7 billion. That same article said that right now, 66% of US companies outsource at least one department. That means something like 300,000 American jobs are being outsourced every year. If the foreign worker can speak English well and has some very basic software, they're ready to go. Skilled, experienced, hardworking, low maintenance, helping to achieve 24-hour productivity. It's symbiotic perfection. They're hired through a third party. Usually they aren't even covered by U.S. employment law. They're employed under the vendor's local rules. But for young Americans who want to get in on the employment ladder, outsourcing means more competition. Globalization might work for owners and investors, but not always for the humble worker. Sure, it might mean you as a consumer receive goods and services at a lower price, but for many that's not a great trade-off. That said, for smaller businesses, outsourcing might be a matter of survival. Need a website, a logo, some video editing or digital marketing, and the global freelancer pool might very well work in your favor. Outsourcing can help companies get off the ground, and better off the ground than a non-starter because you might expand and hire more people. But does big tech need to outsource so much? The same big tech that has recently been issuing return to office or RTO orders to the aggrieved American staff. About 46% of corporate employees who received those orders said that they were going to quit. But it turned out that in surveys, 53% of the companies said they secretly hoped many of their staff would leave. What's known as quiet firing. Why? Well, they didn't need them, but they didn't want to go through the hassle of letting them go. Yet, according to Gallup in 2023, at least 50% of the U.S. workforce was quiet quitting, meaning doing the bare minimum knowing they'd be fired. In the UK, Gallup said 90% of staff were not engaged with their jobs on the way to quiet quitting. But now many of the jobs don't even exist. They wanted to quit in a time of plenty, and those days are over. The companies hold all the cards. Either they can outsource your job, or they can hire someone who's willing to put in 24-hour shifts, never takes a day off, and very rarely makes a mistake. Artificial intelligence is the new golden child at the office. It's the main reason so many entry-level jobs are going or will go, not outsourcing. In 2024, 804 hiring managers at corporate firms were asked some questions about AI. 78% said their company expected to reduce hiring of recent graduates because of it. Some said there would just be small cuts, maybe only around 3 to 10% of the staff. Others saw carnage coming down the pipeline. Over a tenth said reductions could reach 15 to 30%. Some said as much as 30 to 60%. What would the office look like? And some of those managers went as far as saying they'd expect to lose 70% of their staff. Bear in mind, these were predictions, but layoffs are already happening. It's coming, and it's going to get ugly. This is the cold reality. If you don't have strong critical thinking and problem-solving skills, you're competing with systems that can already do more and more of the entry-level work. The good news is only 7% of companies said they were offering fewer jobs than in the past. This was mostly because of AI, but also for financial reasons or because of a lack of faith in young graduates. Companies now expect a lot more of their young workers. Internships are becoming a thing of the past. 7 out of 10 companies said AI could do the job of an intern, so why bother with them? But as you know, internships used to be one of the ways to get on the corporate ladder. The World Economic Forum in March 2026 said over the previous 18 months, entry-level jobs in the U.S. had fallen by a staggering 35%, and that was mostly down to AI. Cheap, reliable, and obedient AI. And if Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei is right, 50% of entry-level white-collar jobs will be wiped out within the next few years. He warned that this will bring a labor market displacement and concentration of economic power. He thinks companies should reassign employees to stave off the need for layoffs. The cozy human-AI relationship in the workplace looks a lot more like humans being told to clean out their desks. The British Standards Institution in 2025 polled 850 company bosses in Australia, China, France, Germany, Japan, the UK, and the US. 41% said they'd already replaced staff with AI. 43% said they were planning to get rid of more humans in the year ahead. At the end of the day, it's all about productivity and efficiency. The long-term consequences of massive job displacement don't seem to concern the companies doing the displacing. Take Amazon, one of the biggest employers in the world, with around 350,000 corporate staff and a total global workforce of 1.5 million. The New York Times reported that just in the US, Amazon employs around 1.2 million people, but it plans to replace a lot of those jobs. The New York Times in 2025 reported that it had accessed internal documents that said the company plans to eliminate or avoid hiring for approximately 600,000 roles by 2033. AI is the reason. About 75% of Amazon's operations will be automated. It's already started in the office. Last year, the company laid off 30,000 of its office staff. That followed 27,000 corporate staff laid off in 2023. By 2027, Amazon's automation technologies will mean 160,000 staff in all kinds of roles not being hired. It estimates savings of around $12.6 billion. But that is tens of thousands or eventually hundreds of thousands of jobs down the drain of progress. And let's not forget Mark Zuckerberg, the man who only ever wanted to connect people with their loved ones. In 2025, he laid off 5% of his staff. By April 2026, he laid off hundreds more as his company tried to recoup losses after mistakenly assuming that people would want to spend all their time in the metaverse. It was a big bet, one that cost Meta an estimated $80 billion since 2021. The company has now turned to AI investment and firing staff. According to Reuters, Zucks might lay off 20% of the Meta workforce in total. He's also throwing $135 billion at AI with a focus on superintelligence, the kind of AI that will take away more entry-level jobs. The jobpocalypse is coming, whether you like it or not. Jack Dorsey knows. He recently told shareholders he plans to lay off 4,000 of his 10,000 staff. He said that everyone else in tech will do it, and he wants to be ahead of the curve. He's right. In the cutthroat world of business, if you lag behind, you go under. The so-called Big Four consultancy firms, Deloitte, EY, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and KPMG, have also jumped on the AI bandwagon. Collectively, they posted 44% fewer jobs for graduates in 2025 compared with 2023. PwC alone plans to cut U.S. entry-level hiring by nearly one-third by 2028. The firm axed 5,600 jobs in 2024, and more axing will follow. It's all happened so fast. In the olden days of 2021, PwC announced that in the next 5 years it planned to hire 100,000 new workers. Almost the exact opposite happened. That shows just how much things have changed in such a short time. With outsourcing and increasingly AI, entry-level jobs are becoming almost obsolete. The few people who do get hired will need to bring their absolute A game, all while young people are constantly told that they're not ready for the corporate world. But which jobs will go first? Recent estimates tell us 80% of all call center work for common customer service inquiries will be automated with chatbots by 2029. All of the jobs that went from the West to Asia in the last 20 years won't even exist over there either. If they do, they'll be few and far between as the call centers adopt the hybrid model where a human steps in when required. Who else is up for the AI guillotine? Clerical and administrative work will be gone. AI and robotic process automation, RPA, are already managing invoices, payroll, and basic bookkeeping. Humans will offer oversight, but they might work as AI verification specialists, but it's highly unlikely or nearly impossible that there will be just as many overseers as there were staff. Some of the pundits are currently saying that jobs will merely transform. For example, paralegals will just become much better when they have a robot assistant. This is the augmentation argument, and it says that we won't be replaced, but we'll be given superpowers. The problem with this argument is it's based on a lot of, guesswork. A member of Anthropic's Economic Advisory Council said in an interview in The Atlantic that even the tech leaders don't know what'll happen. He kinda said that they were winging it. The same article said the same CEO in 2025 would openly talk about AI's effect on the job market. Now they've suddenly gone suspiciously quiet. Realists say companies do what's good for their revenue and their shareholders. What happens to the populace is an afterthought. To be sure, politicians may have tried to introduce policies to limit the carnage, but right now there's still no word about what those policies might look like. The one thing we do know is the entry-level jobs are already becoming the first to go. Whether it's engineering, basic coding, data entry, scheduling, basic architecture, SEO-type marketing, or writing basic blogs, a computer will do it. Routine, rule-based, digital, low risk. you should consider any of those jobs already gone. To survive, you'll need to not just have impressive cognitive skills and originality, but also AI literacy. One without the other won't work in this new demanding reality. But this still doesn't change the fact that you can't get your foot on the bottom rung of the ladder. And it's worse right now because Gen Z is having to scrap it out with all the millennials who recently lost their jobs. They too are going for the entry-level positions. During the years of the pandemic, e-commerce expanded, streaming surged, remote work tools advanced. In a nutshell, the digital world exploded as we all settled in for the new normal. It was the era of the Great Reset, where we would harness the innovations of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. The problem is the future that was envisaged didn't arrive. As the metaverse flopped, growth slowed down and interest rates rose. Suddenly, big firms were wheeling their chopping blocks into the office. Growth turned into efficiency, cutbacks, apologies, and excuses. That left millennials out in the cold. Gen Z rose up in this storm of corporate chaos as millennials were told they were surplus to requirements. It should come as no surprise then that 43% of Gen Z workers are now participating in the gig economy. That's a rough estimate. It's the same with millennials. Depending on the source, either 38% or 45%, even up to 78% of millennials are now earning income from gigs. Some do it to supplement their income, some love the flexibility, but for many it is not a matter of choice. In 2024, the LA Times said 38% of all Americans had hustled in the gig economy, contributing to $1.27 trillion to the economy. This article suggested the government has a responsibility to make such work more sustainable, because right now it's not. There are very few protections for gig workers. So-called precarious work is becoming the norm. We're told that more people are at risk of exploitation. What's called the hustle culture doesn't usually come with safety nets. Workers can find themselves putting in 12-hour shifts, working multiple jobs just to get by. It's one of the reasons so many are moving abroad. Young people, even middle-aged people, are saying that if they have to hustle, they'll hustle where it works best for them. In 2025, according to the Digital Nomad forecast, 39% of Gen Z and millennials stated that they were going to work abroad in the next year. As a writer on the topic said, Gen Z is fast becoming the most internationally mobile generation in history. One of the countries which had been hit the hardest is the UK, a country where the media is talking about an exodus. The BBC cited the Office for National Statistics, or ONS, in 2025 when it said 195,000 people under the age of 35 had made the move abroad from the start of the year to June. In another survey, 75% of young Brits said they'd consider leaving. U.S. data shows the numbers have been increasing in the U.S. too. According to an article in Quartz citing recent data, the new American dream is to leave America. A recent survey said that 17% of Americans are planning to leave, and another 5% were already on their way, each looking for better quality of life. A poll revealed England is one of the leading choices, and it looks like England could need them. Canada, Italy, and Australia were also favorites. Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, Mexico, Spain, and Portugal are also popular haunts for digital hustlers. So many young people leaving can lead to a brain drain. Governments might not like it and they might start putting pressure on other countries or emphasizing the dangers and pitfalls of living abroad. But these are the effects of globalization. It's what hustling looks like when gainful employment at large companies is scarce. People will go where they're provided with the best life. But as the saying goes, the grass can look a lot greener somewhere else. Living without safety nets and constant insecurity isn't for everyone. That said, Western countries, especially the US and UK, are still hemorrhaging young people, and it's gonna get a lot worse. A report said in 2023 there were about 35 million digital nomads, with an estimated 18.1 million from the US. But by 2030, it's estimated there will be 60 million. If corporations had their own way, they'd employ as few people as possible. The endgame is a billion-dollar firm with a board and some executives and a giant server farm of AI agents. Maximum productivity, minimal costs. That's the future. They don't need you, and they don't want you. So if companies don't need people anymore, where did all the jobs go? Well, that's exactly what we'll break down in Why the US is Running Out of Jobs. Or click on this video instead.